Forget the 7-step morning routines that all the influencers are preaching. I found a real formula for dads juggling business and family that's simple and allows you to be consistent. After 10 years of experimenting with my own habits and years coaching small business owners, I've cracked the code for what you need in order to have a morning routine that works for you and that you can stay consistent with, even if you have young kids at home. In this video, I'm going to share some simple formulas and tips to help busy dads like you stay consistent, feel less overwhelmed, and actually build a morning routine that you can stick with. I'm Fyfe Barraclough, and I help business owner dads grow their companies without being trapped in daily operations or self-sabotage. Today, we're going to dive into morning routines. If you're a business owner dad, you don't have the same control over your time anymore. You used to be able to get up when you wanted, set your alarm, and be up so you could have some time to yourself before you had to get out the door for the day. Now, you've got a young family, maybe you have infants at home, you're up multiple times a night, kids might be sick. There are a lot of different variables at play with things that affect your sleep, which affects your ability to get up and be productive first thing in the morning. Or when you do get up, your whole family's up, or you're up with one of the kids because they're up early. So that space in the morning is no longer your own in quite the same way. Today, I want to get into some practical tips to help figure out how you can still get what you need out of that morning. So let's dive into some of the top problems that I see with clients about what keeps them from getting into a morning routine that sticks. Borrowed systems don't work. There are a ton of influencers out there that share their morning routines, and it can be inspiring, but it can also be demotivating because you realize that you can't do the same thing. A lot of influencers, Tim Ferriss, Andrew Huberman, all these people that have these really cool systems and morning routines. First of all, they don't have kids. And second of all, their business is probably in a very different place than yours right now. So borrowing a system from somebody can be great because it can get the momentum started, but longevity of the habit isn't as sticky because it's not yours. You don't have the same buy-in. It's not as aligned with your lifestyle. You didn't come up with the idea, so it's just not as sticky. So if you're copying somebody else's system, you need to make sure you're tweaking it to make it yours. The second one is the real life challenges that we already mentioned, which is lack of sleep and lack of control over your time. Your mornings are dictated by your kids' needs, so you don't have that same space to create for yourself to build your own morning routine. The third is being over-caffeinated. And when you hear that, you might be thinking, well, no, I need coffee to get my day started. I need that to kickstart my day and get my energy up. And that's absolutely the case for a lot of people. Having a morning coffee and that process of creating that morning coffee can actually be a really great morning routine. Where I see people get into trouble is they're over-caffeinated throughout the day. So they have too much coffee or caffeine throughout the day and too late into the day. And that keeps them up later than they should be in the evening, which impacts their ability to fall asleep and have a proper sleep so they're able to get up in the morning. So this over-caffeination creates a bit of a cycle of staying up later, being too wired at the end of the day, not being able to wind down and have a good sleep, which impacts your ability to get up and have a productive morning routine, maybe a bit earlier than you are right now. The fourth is overcomplicating routines. And what happens is I call it the habit swing or a spectrum. So when you first start a habit or when you're pre-habit, you're at 0. Nothing's actually happening. There's no action. There's no actual habit. You're at 0. And then when you start the habit, we usually go to 10. We adopt the 7-step elaborate routine from Tim Ferriss or somebody, and we end up way over here. It's overcomplicated. It's habit overload because it takes too long. It's too complicated. And it's not a sustainable, bite-sized habit that we can do every single day. So maybe it's like 35 minutes of journaling and exercise and cold tubbing and all this kind of stuff. So it's just way too much. And what happens is most people oscillate between the two. They either do nothing or they do their 35 to an hour long great morning routine. And again, with the constraints of being a dad and a business owner, it's just not possible. And that inconsistency can create a lot of guilt when you're not able to establish something that you know would be helpful for you. So That's the starting point. You start from 0, you go to 10, and then you go back to 0. The key here is to find the sweet spot. So I call that the sustainable window. And that's where I'm going to introduce the term minimum viable dose happens. And that's the sweet spot. So this sustainable zone only happens when we've had the habit swing a couple times. So you start at 0, you go to 10, and then it swings back close to 0, and then it swings a little bit farther up. But as long as you stay consistent, you'll kind of find this sweet spot where in the middle, you'll find a minimum viable dose, which means the habit works, it's sufficient, it gives you the boost that you need and the mental space that you need, but it's doable every single day. So let's get into a couple key parts of what's needed to find and create that minimum viable dose. So the first is identity first habits. Your actions need to match your identity and vice versa. Your identity needs to match the actions that you want to take. If you see yourself as somebody who sucks and does not like exercise, getting up early to do exercise is going to be really hard for you. If you see yourself as somebody who is just inconsistent with habits, it's going to be really hard for you to create some good habits. So a big part of building good habits is connecting that to your identity and the identity that's emerging as well. So start to look at yourself as somebody who, even if you're not there yet, you are creating good habits. You're in the process of becoming somebody who's great at having habits instead of somebody who just sucks at it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let go of perfection. There's going to be missed days. There's going to be failures. And that oscillation of 0 to 10, that will happen if you're focused on perfection. So you need to let go of perfection and be able to recover and just focus on trying and trying and trying. It's not about getting it right. It's about just tracking it and doing it as best you can. And over time, that focus on progress will establish the habit more than getting the right system down. So focus on building these really small wins, and the momentum of you becoming the person that you want to be by establishing and doing the habits that you want to have will build that confidence over time. And this is really possible when you have a minimum viable dose. So the definition of that is, what's the tiniest version of your morning routine that you can commit to and do no matter what? And no matter what means every single day. So if you had 3 hours of sleep, you can still do it. If you're traveling, you can do it. If your kids are up early, you can still do it. It's something that you can do no matter what. And it will take some time to figure out what that thing is. And it might change over time. I think that's been one of my experiences, is my habits will change over time, but the key is I have a habit morning routine of something. And the novelty wears off, installing something new. So for a long time, it was a walk around the block. And then I got to the point to where I was running. Now I do a workout 3 days a week. But those off days, I do my minimum viable dose, which is I do 5 push-ups. I've added in something fun for me and my daughter, who's now 2.5, is I do push-ups with her on my back. So it's a little bit of father-daughter bonding time, and it increases my strength because I've got a little kid on my back. But for me, my minimum viable dose right now is I commit to doing 5 push-ups. Ideally with her on my back. If that's not possible, I do 5 push-ups and I jump into a cold shower. And the key here with the minimum viable dose is you need to iterate to find that thing, and it might change over time, but you need to commit to something that you can do ideally in under 5 minutes. And maybe it's 2 minutes when you first start. So my formula that's helped me the most get the most out of that really short 5-minute exercise, morning routine, whatever it is that you want to do, in order for me to feel grounded, energized, and have some good mental space, there's a couple things here. First is I need to change my state. So when I first wake up, you're groggy. I don't actually drink coffee. So the key here is I need to change my body temperature and my heart rate. So push-ups does that for me very quickly. I get my heart rate up. It warms up my internal temperature, which allows me to go have a cold shower, because hopping out of bed and having a cold shower is a tough one. But something to change my physical state, which helps wake me up. Second one is to do something for myself. So for me, I do mental fitness reps. I might do a bit of journaling or some mindfulness, but something that fills my cup. And that for you might be literally a cup of coffee. It fills your cup. But something for you that's a little vote or a little coin in your piggy bank for yourself of doing something for you and just for you. And then third is creating mental space. So I mentioned mindfulness, journaling. Those are things for me that creates mental space. And again, a cold shower creates mental space for me. I don't always journal or do mindfulness stuff, but a cold shower clears my head very quickly. But those are the three things that have really helped for me: is changing my state, doing something for myself, and creating mental space. And sometimes one single action can do all three of those things. But when all three of those things happen, whether it's three different actions that get there or one single habit that you do that gets you there, that to me is a powerful minimum viable dose that really sets you up for a good morning routine. Some pro tips for consistency: reduce friction as much as you can. If you haven't read Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits, highly recommend it. I'm pulling a lot of information from that in this little training. But reduce friction. So that means if you're getting up for a workout, have your clothes laid out. If you need to do push-ups, have a place all set up for your push-ups or your little workout. Yoga mat rolled out so it's ready. Reduce the amount of steps it takes for you to do the thing and make it as easy as possible for you to do it in the shortest amount of time. And that often starts with the night before. Commit with accountability. So since I started going to a gym that I pay for, that has really increased my accountability, because there's people that will say, "Where were you yesterday?" if I don't show up. I'm paying good money, decent amount of money. So if I miss a class, I'm choked. The other part of the gym that I go to is I have to lock in my spot ahead of time. So there's even more accountability. But look for ways to add accountability to the morning routine if you can, whether that's working out with a buddy, doing a class, doing something with your wife, but as much as possible, or have a coach that you check in with. That's been really helpful. I already mentioned the 5-minute rule. Try and keep whatever it is under 5 minutes so you can do it anywhere. Again, if it's a workout, you can't always do that when you're traveling or on vacation. So ideally body weight if it's an exercise thing. Celebrate progress. So track the wins, celebrate the small things, celebrate the fact that you did one push-up. That's more important than doing 20 push-ups. The fact that you did the habit is more important. So celebrate that every time and give yourself a little dopamine kick, like a little celebration that yes, I did the thing. And that will actually reinforce that neural loop so that it's more likely to happen again. That's what habits hinge on, is that little dopamine hit that wires in the habit and that neural loop. So you can actively hack that and do more of it by celebrating. And then I've touched on it before, but the good morning routine starts with a night routine. So if you're not going to bed at a consistent time and getting a good night's sleep, that's going to be really tough for you to get set up for the morning. So as much as possible, I know you're a dad, but just because your sleep is not your own quite the same way doesn't mean you need to have poor bedtime routines. So highly suggest regular bedtime, no devices an hour before, no screens an hour before, no phones in bed. Set yourself up for success the night before by having a positive evening routine. So consistency is not about being perfect. It's about doing what you can with what you have. And that minimum viable dose can be a really powerful concept for this, but also other areas of your business and life. Based on this, put a note in the chat or in the comments. What's your current morning routine? And what's one small habit that you could commit to in terms of making this a minimum viable dose that you could do every single day? If this was helpful, hit like, subscribe, share this video with another dad who needs to hear this, and let's build some habits that stick.